Hey y'all, it's your co-host Yogi Rich, introducing episode 12 of OneAnswer Yoga. What is Leo? This conversation is really about a bunch of different topics, but all encompassing sort of the lessons and symbology behind Leo. I really don't want to say too much more about the content of the podcast other than that. I think you'll really enjoy it. What I do want to say though is if you're listening to this, please follow, subscribe, turn on notifications for this podcast. It would mean the world also if you're able to just like listen to the whole thing through, even if you have it in the background. So without further ado, please enjoy episode 12 of One Answer Yoga. One love. Peace.
Okay, here we are again.
What's up? What's up?
Not much. How are you today?
I feel great, honestly. I feel like life's been on the up and up. There have been like a lot of like really beautiful experiences and like in the last like maybe like 72 hours or so.
Mm,
And it's always great that it's always great when I was telling my friend this the other day. I was like, it's being a yoga instructor can be kind of strange because to some people you sound so crazy, like when you're like explaining like certain things or having certain conversations or like your point of view might be so different. And, like, especially the spaces that I've been in than, like, how everybody else thinks. So,
mhm,
when the way that you think when you can when the way that you think pays off and you're able to, like, have more experiences, life experiences to give, like, more testimony in the future, it's, like, a double whammy because it's like, "Oh, yeah, I, like, quote, unquote, suffered," but, like, just for, I suffered this for a second, but like, oh, I can see like answered prayers happening in my life right now, And
hmm.
um yeah, so that's been on my mind. I could talk about it a little bit, but yeah. How have you been? How's your day?
It's okay. I've been going through like a bout of depression, which has been really interesting because I haven't really had a bout like this in a long time. So,
Mm.
but one of the things that I thought was really interesting is my therapist said sometimes when they're looking at depression in like a holistic viewpoint now,
Mhm.
they said sometimes depression is just the need for really, really deep rest. And I think, like,
Yeah.
after the last, like, particularly 3.5 years, like, some really deep rest is overdue. So I'm just really
Mm,
trying to honor that and allow myself to get that rest, which is really not always
mm,
comfortable for me, but it's in
mm,
the uncomfortable that often we find the deepest lessons, I think, like, at least for me. So, it's very funny because 'cause I'm such a, like, doer, like, go out and, like, make the most of your
mm,
life and live this big, glamorous, like, big life and, achieve, and have goals and set your goals and achieve your goals and all of these things.
mm.
And so it's really funny because someone was like, "What are your goals? Like, do you have, like, a vision board?" I was like, "No." Nope. So it's nice. I've been doing a lot of quiet activities, which is really interesting, like
Mm,
embroidering and knitting and sewing and, mm, reading. Just really doing some quiet stuff right now. So it's interesting to be in such a quiet season, especially after having such a kind of crazy, chaotic season of,
mm,
working like 16-hour days and just
mm.
basically burning out. I mean, let's be honest, I burnt out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes after burnout, you gotta have like some deep rest.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel that. I mean, that's kinda like to me, that reminds me of seasonal quote unquote depression,
Hmm.
Um, you're making me think like what might be on your chart too that would like associate with that possibly. I mean, like I was saying, Mercury was in retrograde, like I said, for like, it
Hmm.
just got out of it and we're still in its shadow. And that on top of like just like the energy drain that you're talking about
Yeah.
is yeah. And I mean, I would say like that yeah, before these last 72 hours, I was definitely having a difficult time more than usual,
Yeah.
it's funny. I have a feeling and a hunch that like, and oftentimes it's proven that like we're kind of going through similar things at the same time, but maybe like just like just shine through different crystals basically, and it looks just a little bit different. And yeah, that's what I mean. It was like I was definitely getting tested in my belief system essentially, and like
Hmm.
and that it's more so like I felt like I was only able to hold plank for like a couple more seconds. It's kind of what it felt like. It was like I don't have much more like it's like I'm trying my hardest and I'm still holding this posture, but like my legs are getting wiggly, my arms are getting wiggly, and it's like I'm feeling the tension, I'm feeling the heat in a way that I hadn't really felt before. It just felt like a higher challenge. A lot of what Leo is about is like courage and like confrontation,
Yeah.
um and pushing. It pushes like the demons or problems, like I got this like little massage ball like to the surface for you to confront them. Um and at the same time you have like some wind at your back, like at least the sun's out. There's it's funny, you made a reference the other day. It was like, "Go outside and count the leaves, count the blades of grass." And it's like, you can't do that in winter. It's more difficult to have those examples of prosperity when, like, life like, when life is getting tough, when, like, when you're in that mode of depression. So,
What do you think
um
led to sort of like the shift over the last 72 hours for you?
well, it was because I knew that I couldn't hold plank anymore. I was like, "Okay, something's gotta give," like, either his next posture or, like, you know, I don't know, like, because so what it was for me, it was like, we were talking about money. I'll start with that one because, like, that's, like, the most relevant is, or I guess the most, like, many people will relate to this, is we're talking about kinda money hidden, and I make questionable choices with my money because I had questionable guidance when I was younger, right? Like, when I first
Yeah.
started working, it's like that's and I got a house at 23, and when I got I got a condo, so when I got my spot, it's like all of and you have this corporate job, it's like now everybody wants to offer you additional disability, additional life insurance, additional this,
Mhm.
additional that, like, for, just a couple $100 a month, like, you can afford it, like, they offer you services, but at the same time, it's like it's still, like, expensive because they're trying to sell you their own, like, things. They're like, "Oh, we'll help you do your overall budget, but we'll see where we can fit in here." And so that was one thing that so I was paying for this what's it called? I think it was, like, I got, like, life insurance and disability insurance and additional, when I was, like, first in construction, and really also, like, it worked on me because I was scared because I was like, "Yeah, I really could get hurt because like, Bob's got me going to, like, the top of this roof in a harness, like, balancing on an I-beam, so I really know what it feels like to be one of the guys, like, so, yeah, he's like, "Get in that boom lift with him," like, "Up there? Like, that's, like, 70 feet up and just a basket that wobbles with the wind?"
Mhm.
So, then COVID hit, and, like, my priorities also started to shift because, like, COVID hit to me means my dad passed away, I got out of, like, a 8-year relationship, and I just turned 25. Like, that was all within, like, a 5-month span. Um, and so when COVID hit, I was like, "Okay." I just started to, like, reconsider all my finances and what I was spending my money on and what I wanted to, like, invest in. Because 'cause I'm like, I feel like I'm spending, like, hundreds of like, $300 a month, like, to something that could happen, might happen, and I'm not really investing in my visions, like, yeah, I don't know if it's, like, an Aries thing, but to me, like, the vision has always been kinda clear, or, like, I've always been able to kind of formulate one easily if I wanted to, I guess. So I'm like, "No, I have, like, a life vision, like, this is not gonna work." So, I called the people, and I canceled one of them, and the other one, he was like, "Look, we can pause this for a year, but if you don't start paying back in a year, then, like, it's basically a problem." And I was like, "Alright, well, whatever." So it's been like 5 years and I haven't paid, right? And I keep getting like letters in the mail of these people, and I'm like, it's just like whatever. Like it's not. And it's funny. My main concern is like it's not affecting my credit. Like I still have high credit. Like whatever. It must not be that big of a deal. But the numbers were getting up to like thousands and thousands, like $10,000 plus. So I'm like, dang, like I don't have a career like steady income like I did before. So I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna get paid, but I gotta call these people and just see what happens and be like, just if I have to pay them, I have to figure out what it is. And
Yeah.
like it's difficult to confront those things, but like this is what Leo's for. It gives you the strength to like confront these things. So we finally like figured out a time to have this meeting, and it was what day was that? Like whatever, 72 hours ago, whatever. Friday, I think, something like that. And the guy calls me at like 11, and I'm thinking it's gonna be like I don't know. I thought we were gonna have a meeting and we are gonna like be like, okay, I can help you like budget and invest, but like this is how much you owe me each month. I was like, okay, but it wasn't like that at all. He was like, hey, like do you want to reschedule? And I was like, well, while I have you on the phone, like I haven't talked to you in several years, like at least 5 years. Like let me tell you what's going on in my life. Like I want to switch my portfolio to just investments, and I don't want to have a diverse investment. I want to have like specific investments in the thing that I'm gonna help come into fruition. And I have
Hmm.
and um it's like all like this mindset of just like, yeah, just like diffuse, play it safe, like it's not very interesting. So I was like, but in addition to that, like, let me tell you about my income situation. Like, it's completely switched. Like, applied to a couple places. I expect to hear back, but this is where I'm at right now. Um, and he was like, okay, okay. And then I was like, well, like, I kind of forgot. It's been so many years since I've talked to you and I've really looked at the policy. Like, what are some of the things of the policy? Is there like any unemployment? Is there any like little side thing you have when you're transitioning? And he was like, well, one thing you canceled a long time ago. And then the other thing, since you haven't been paying, but you did pay for several years, it's just been pulling from the policy itself. So
Oh,
yeah, so
interesting.
he's like, actually, you have like several months left, and if you don't, like, if you just let it run out, then it'll just lapse. But if you can also just like extract it all, like you can extract like the last 7 months. So I was like, well, can I just extract
Can
it
I do
because that
that
would be
one?
very helpful. Yeah, like, can I do that one? And out of nowhere, almost like it was like the exact opposite of what I thought. I thought I was gonna owe this guy thousands of dollars, and he's giving me thousands of dollars, and um. So that's one example, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Of like that shift, right? Of like going in there with a fear, avoiding something, and then when you actually just face it and do it, it's really often sometimes not as bad as you think, and often has some sort of magical reward at the end of it when you actually deal with it. I hear that. Like that's uh ignoring things is not usually the best. Well, I should say this with a caveat because they do say disregard for the wicked, right? In the Yoga Sutras. So
It does.
some of that maybe ignoring but disregard can be very useful. But I do find like, that idea of really um keeping your own act sort of like clean and just facing stuff can often be like the best way of just like dealing with anything difficult in your life, whether it's a conversation you're gonna have or um a bill you can't pay. Or it's amazing how much when we actually talk to people that it gets resolved, but we avoid it and then it becomes like a whole thing. And
Hmm.
myself too, like, I mean, I'm sure there's probably a list of like 20 things I'm avoiding right now. That probably if I just took the time and did them, I would be much more relaxed and happy about it. I think it's just sort of nature to want to not have to always have, difficult situations or difficult conversations or difficulty, but often it just makes it more difficult.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Yeah.
does. I mean, I have several stories. I could just keep going if you want to keep
Tell
dissecting them.
more. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of interesting because I know that there's probably somebody out there
Yeah.
who's listening or will be listening that also is in a point where, like, I can't hold plank any longer. We're using this as a metaphor, by the way. He's not saying he literally couldn't hold the pose long. He's using that as a metaphor for, like, that feeling of if you've done plank and you know you reach that point where you're like, I can't hold it any longer. And so I know that there's probably other people out there who are at that point where they're like, I cannot hold it any longer. I don't know how I'm going to keep going. And so I think it can be really useful and supportive to hear stories of other people who reach that space and then kind of like what shifted for you. And that's what I was kind of curious about. Not just the result, but what you think shifted in you to be able
Yeah.
to create this new energy 72 hours later. So yeah, continue on with your story. It's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like the thing it's like and I'm using Leo as an example because I don't want to take the credit and really is the credit goes to the, to the most high to me, but I would say like the most accessible is like this time of the year because everyone I know too is like everybody's going through something that's like specific and unique to them. But so that was one thing and like what really like yeah, it's just like all right, so I'm gonna give you a couple more examples, and it's like I think there's an audio book that like I was listening to that really helped me out a little bit.
Oh, good.
A couple other examples of like this is all recent is I would say uh, like what do you say closing the loop like closing the loop on a couple of different things all at once. So I so when I was building I kind of did this I kind of told the story of how like I was working in construction and the thing that really like shifted for me was like I started to shift like what I really wanted out of life. And then as that started to happen, I was like, I still find joy in construction. Like there's still like something about it that like um just resonates with me and really fulfills me. So I was like, I just want to build things for people that I love with like a completely generous spirit. And like when I need like when I need money as energy, like in my life, because Clark was paying so well, like typically speaking, I didn't really need an additional income. But so like that's why like with yoga too, I was just like, basically doing it for free. But that approach with family, like it's like, it got tricky. So like you always have to kind of be on your P's and Q's, especially like when you're running a business and like in if I have these lofty goals. So with so it's I'm lumping the projects together because they're like a couple houses apart in Orange County. Like so it's like an hour away from my house. Um and one is my aunt and I'm renovating her basement. So she has like an unfinished basement doing like everything from like the drawings, the permit submission, like I had my architect friend help me draft something and then I have like, electrical engineer friends, plumbers, like different things that I like basically contracted. So I was overseeing it essentially. And I was like, okay, this is what I like to do. And then at the same time, or like sort of like several months in, I started building a deck for another person. And um, they're both sort of family, but in interesting ways. Like one's my aunt that lived with me for several years. And then the other person is like my aunt's brother. So he's my uncle, but kind of different because they were an adopted family, and my uncle took the boys, and Nana, my grandma, took the girls, and so this woman was married to basically my uncle, but they had to been divorced, so she was like sort of family but removed. But I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and she has like a really old mom who's like sick and just can't move that well. So she was like, I want to build this deck for her to like enjoy outside without much of a problem. So like, okay, cool. So that deck, it's like it didn't have to go through permitting through the county because it was like it's low to the ground, it's below through 3 feet, but it has to go through HOA and all that kind of stuff, which can even be worse sometimes. So we're just going through this lengthy process, and these are two projects that are going on at the same time, and they're just kind of like it's stressful because I'm trying to, it's stressful because I'm working in a different way. It's like, I'm not trying to charge them anything. I'm trying to get as much material as I can, like for a low price. Like it's like very challenging to think that way when Clark usually has, my main job has all the money in the world. Like you can just like, I spend on that entire project, like in 2 days on a job site that I do, like, for my family. Well, anyways, um, the deck job didn't end that well. You can blame, there's a lot of different reasons why, but like physically it ended well, but just like my 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 family member wasn't pleased with how things went down. And it was right,
No.
yeah, and it was right as I was leaving.
Oh dear.
So as I was leaving, essentially, I had all my tools at their place. Like I said, it's an hour away from my house, and there's the two jobs right next to each other. So these are like my personal tools that I'm storing down there, right? Rather than lugging them each time. And so it's like I'm literally moving, like bringing my plants and everything to Denver on the drive. And she didn't let me get my tools back. So I haven't had, and this is like, you
Oh
know,
no.
like to be technical, like this is like, like 12-inch miter saw. It's like $400, like a toolbox, like a Hilti hammer drill. Like these are pretty expensive things. And also, and still the project like had a little bit to do, but like I had like basically I'm a contractor. So the main people that I had doing the work, uh, were still working essentially. And they had like a couple days left, but she wasn't pleased. Like she just wasn't pleased. So, when I went back to Virginia in May, I tried to get them back, and she's just like, "No, you can't get them back. I won't open it for you." Tried to have a friend get them. She was like, "No." Um, and then she texted me basically like in Leo, like early August, and was like, "You can come get your tools, or have someone come get them." So she says that, and then I'm like,
I see what you mean now about, like, how you can't take credit for it. It's like the season. It
"It's the
was just like
season."
the energy. It's not like you took some action. It was just like the energy of the kind of like stars and alignment of the planets was ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so then, yeah, so she said that to me, and I was like, okay. And then it was like even getting even like this last little week of like the last like details of being like, I'll be like, hey, I'm asking my friend, I say, hey, he can come this day. And she's like, well, can he come a day before and at night? And I'm like, okay, I'll see if he can do it. And then I'm like, nah, he can't do that. And then I'm like, he can come this time on the next day. She's like, okay. And then the next day, she's like, actually, no, like, can he come at this time? I have a really busy, you know what I mean? It's like every single day. And then, but on the day, the actual moment, like, I just get a FaceTime with my homie. He's like, I think I got everything, you know, she's not saying anything, and he's getting like the last little bit out and just pulling it out, and it just went smooth. And it's my homie. What's really a blessing about it was I told him to get them a long time ago, and she was like, I'm gonna call the cops on you. Like, you can't come in here. I'm not gonna let you get him. Like, me and Quentin have something unresolved. Like, da 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 da. So he's just like, but he's like, he's cool. So he was just like, he's in the industry, so he understands crazy homo, like that's what he would say, like a wild client basically. So I wanted to give it to him as he,
It happens to be family.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So but why I really wanted to do it was because he was marrying my homegirl. Like he's like a couple years younger than me, so I look at him as like a younger brother, and like I just care about him. And since he's like in the industry, like I'm like, oh, you're gonna benefit from this, and y'all have a house. Like she bought a house the same time I did. And so you're gonna get to use these tools well. And I kind of felt bad for like it going down this way, but also knowing that it's not entirely under my control. But when he finally got it and everything happened, it was the following day was the day that I got the call about the money. Um, and
Mm.
yeah, it was like just like being so nervous to talk to this person. Like, oh, me and this person, we got into like a little bit of an argument too in Aries, and like me and this client, and like that also made things more tense and made it more difficult for me to get the tools back. Um, and Yeah. I mean, so it was like some things just get like have to get brought to light. And you said your whole life you're talking about like, you've had depression every now and then and like so it coming to light in Leo, like to me, seems like in alignment, even though it might not be fun.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Yeah.
life is not always fun.
Yeah, yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not useful, necessary, a great learning tool, a great opportunity to gain wisdom. Like there's a lot
Mm,
of things. I think we talked about this earlier about this like need for fun and happy in our
mm,
society. Like we're
mm,
all supposed to be just like happy, joy, like, in this like kind of almost like manic happiness
mm,
that I feel like, sometimes that's just like the seasons, right? Like it's not always spring. It's not always summer. Sometimes it's fall, sometimes it's winter. And in those seasons, but I think as a society, want to stay in this like, super high energy, happy space forever.
mm,
It can be more fun, right? Like I was saying,
yes.
life is not always fun, but sometimes it can be more fun. Do you watch oh my gosh, now it's escaping me. Yes Theory. Do you watch Yes Theory on YouTube?
No.
Oh my gosh. If you all are not watching Yes Theory, please go out and start watching Yes Theory. It is like my happy place.
Okay.
Speaking of happy. And it's these guys on YouTube, and they started this channel with this idea of seek discomfort. And so they started doing things that made them feel uncomfortable. And this escalated into just like these crazy now. Of course, they're a big YouTube channel, so they get to go on these crazy adventures and do these really wild things. And one of the guys actually just went to go visit Baghdad, which was a great
Mm,
episode. He went to
mm,
Kazakhstan, I think it was, and then he went to Baghdad. Uh, and he was talking about how everybody told him, "Don't go to Baghdad. Don't go to Baghdad. It's not safe in Baghdad." And he went ahead and went, and of course, connected with humans and had the most amazing, enriching, incredible time. And he wasn't like, I'm not
yeah.
saying everybody should go to Baghdad, but he's like, when we connect as people, um, then there's so much reward. And one of the things I think that is uncomfortable sometimes for people is to connect as people. Just like
Yeah.
almost like the fear of calling that guy, but when you called the guy and he was human, I'm gonna say I'm not exactly proud. I was trying to get something done recently and I got a customer service person on the phone and I was not very kind to them. I can't go back and undo that.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know. I could never get that same customer service person. Um, but it was like I dropped into some sort of sense of comfort of like just also
Mm,
entitlement, like you got to help me, you're customer service and you're there to like serve me.
yeah, of
A
course.
kind of attitude, which was sort of disappointing in myself. No matter
Mm,
how frustrating it was, I mean, they really were just, like, out in left field,
yeah.
and literally, it was just kind of one of those things where, like, they just were not doing what I would needed done, and I was really stressed, and I just, kept trying to and then they just kind of went off on this whole tangent of what they thought I needed. It's it's kind of like what I'm saying is this idea of sometimes we just default into what's comfortable, and sometimes what's comfortable is not connecting with people. Sometimes what's comfortable is not having the conversation, but it's in the discomfort that often we find the most rewarding things. Like, that's why I think sometimes like yoga is so interesting because yoga is supposed to be a steady, comfortable posture. But I think sometimes why people try to challenge themselves a little bit with poses or hold something a little bit longer or sit in meditation a little longer than it's comfortable. Because there is something about overcoming the mind and the body or our own resistance that when we lean into that discomfort and we're able to do it, it shows us that we are stronger, more capable, more powerful, all the things. I don't think this was what the Yes Theory guys were
Mm.
specifically talking about, but it is really interesting, this idea of seek discomfort.
Mm,
Um, and trying to look for ways to stretch out of your comfort zone, and I really feel like that's partially what you did,
Mm,
um, with making the phone call. It was not comfortable.
no,
If you wanted to be
I,
comfortable, you just would have been like, "I'm just gonna not ever talk to that guy ever."
it's yeah. I have more stories.
Good. This is like story time today. I like it.
Yeah. So another thing that's like come to
Story time
head.
with some Radha commentary thrown in.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Oh.
I just lost my. Wait a second. It's just been dark over here. Okay, I'm back. All right. For those of you just listening, I just hit some button and all of my lights went out and all of a sudden I was sitting here in the dark. So I'm back. Sorry about that.
No. So I so another thing that's like interesting and um ongoing was the one of my yoga instructors, right? Like I actually my favorite yoga instructor. This one's like this one's definitely not like as heavy as the other ones. But this is like an example sometimes of like how it's not things that aren't always happening at the time that you think they should be, or like sometimes like I sometimes I really struggle with the idea of procrastination and like yeah, because it seems like maybe your sense of procrastination is just misaligned with the rate of maturity, and that like things need to mature, events and experiences need to mature and ripen before they need to happen. Like sometimes like we might because we can speak, we feel a heavy emphasis to communicate or do certain things. We also like, yeah, but that might not actually be necessary for like that that experience to blossom and flourish. So like my example with my yoga instructor is like, I hadn't been seeing them. I told them this earlier. I hadn't been seeing them for a while, and like, I'm typically really disciplined about like my morning routine, but I was realizing that like my morning routine, of course, is like also dependent on like if it's one of the other instructors, like I might not go to that class because I no hate, but it's just like not my style. So since they like kind of switched up their schedule and their life's been shifting up, like I hadn't been seeing them as often. So and they also like love Safa, like Safa loves them, like they're so dope. And
Who doesn't love softball?
right, right. So they yeah, so she I forget exactly how we got linked up, but we had some time to spend together. Like Soph and I ended up doing like a massive clean in the house. Like I sort of after like the What Is Money episode, we were looking around, we were like, okay, what
Mm.
can we do? And, like that's why like rearranged the seating. We had like people over for dinner, and then like and then I had like my instructor pull up, and Safa also had some clothes for her. We have like just a chance to like connect and talk about life, and it's like it's really cool to like connect instructor to instructor. It's like when you're an instructor and you don't spend time with instructors, like this is what you were saying about your homie who's on the Yoga Alliance board. It's like there's certain things you can just like talk about that you can relate about, and just like we're dealing with the complexities of being an instructor. Like I feel like yoga instructor is not an adequate word for at least what people perceive us as, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
right? It's like,
I've been a
um,
yoga instructor and I've been a Zumba instructor.
yes. One's probably different than the other,
One is
like,
different than the other. One is different. Yeah, people come and dance and maybe they say hi afterwards. It's a totally different energy. Yeah, you're moving yoga, you're moving a lot of energy through people's bodies. You're bringing up a lot of stuff for people and you're holding space and there's a lot that goes along with being a yoga instructor that is not just simply learning how to, deliver a script.
yes, and especially like, because your regulars. Yeah, it's like regulars isn't even an accurate word either. It's like in the people that see you all the time, that spend time around you, that ask you for advice, like that's a different relationship. So how do you, you know, since it's a different relationship than just solely a friendship, like how do you approach that? How do you approach these like conversations? Um, and so it was just like, yeah, just such a fulfilling experience to just like, get to kick it and speak to her for a while and think to myself like, "Oh, I'm over here trying to rush it," but we both had to go through like several life experiences to even really like address the situation that like, that she was being presented with, but also um even the things that I'm being presented with, in my own life. And just like what you say, it's like it always comes down to a phone call. And it's interesting, like I learned that in construction, like I started working in Leo also in construction 8 years ago, and I was so nervous to, like, just talk to people because they all seem big and scary and so, like, so above and beyond, and so, like, I felt like no one has ever been in my shoes, so I would approach people as if, like, they were gonna automatically judge me because they would never fall for this, or they would never succumb to this, and, like, as I've gotten older, like, that's definitely not the case at all, like, all the time we have things that are going on in our lives, it's much more cathartic and, connecting when we, like, express those with each other, because in that expression, but also not like wallowing in it, but with, like, "This is what's going on with me, like, isn't life crazy?" Like, I'm working my way through it, and still having, like, faith conversations, like, you can get, so much, yes, so much, that you wouldn't be able to get if you just kind of succumb to that tendency to isolate. Yeah, me seeing her, and then, like, the next day after that, like, she ended up, like, donating all her furniture, got brand new furniture for another instructor,
Wow.
and I was there to help move. That was another thing that kinda happened, and it was just more reinforcement to the idea of, like, continue to have faith because your payment won't always come in, like, material payment, but you'll feel the payment. It's like it's much more, yeah, you'll feel that deposit of whatever dopamine, whatever you wanna call it, but, like, that, like, fulfilling, that fuel, that, like, that vitality, that's, like, really the quote, unquote "payment" that you receive, and then sometimes it shows up as money, and sometimes it's the perfect amount.
I love that. Like, really, again, it goes back to that theme of just showing up and allowing it to, uh, not looking for that one-on-one reward, but just saying, I'm just showing up. And maybe if I'm showing up in this area, then something will release in a different area because it is all just like flows of energy, flow of money, flow of prana, flow of chi, whatever you want to label it, but it's all just that
Mm,
flow. And so, like, unlocking one area of your life could possibly unlock other areas of your life, right? But it doesn't have to
mm,
be like, necessarily one on one. Like the situation, like who knows what unlocks something with your aunt?
mm,
Could be the planets, could be cleaning your house, could be, I mean, who knows? Could be serving and supporting somebody else. We
mm,
don't always have the answers. That's, I think, for the part that,
mm,
like, I know for my husband, I think that frustrates him a little bit. Like, D also, like, he often wants to know the answer. Like, like, well, why
mm,
did this happen? Or how did this happen? And I'm like, sometimes you're just not going to know. Sometimes you just
yeah,
have to sit in the unknowing and just be like, I don't know, but I'm going to be grateful and I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to say thank you
mm,
for whatever that was, even though I have no idea like where that particular piece of grace came from. And same with the unfortunate and the uncomfortable stuff too, right? Like sometimes some stuff happens in life and you go, wow, I don't feel like I deserve this.
mm,
But
mm,
that's a very defeating way to think, I believe. I think really it's more like, how is this serving me? And I guess like when you're doing leadership and also in yoga, it's constantly looking at like, how does this serve me? How does this serve me? Because everything's neutral. So if everything's neutral, you're just looking at things that serve you or don't serve you.
mm,
This also goes back to DBT, by the way. Like if anyone who's done dialectical behavioral therapy, this is a big idea in there too of like, how does this serve you? How does it not serve you?
Mm.
Um, and so as we're looking at things that are serving or not serving us, we can get rid of things that aren't serving us. And sometimes it opens up a flow of energy to something that can serve us,
Yeah.
which I think is really fascinating. So you may not always know, but there's always some sort of, I mean, I do think there's a bigger picture. I do
Mm.
think there's some divine plans happening or some bigger plan than just our own little selves.
Mm.
And so if there is some sort of bigger divine plan, what does that look like? How does that, you know? And again, sometimes, Dan and I have had a rough year. I'm going to say, like, it's been the roughest year we've had in quite a while.
Mm.
There's been very challenging things happening. I could look at it and be like, oh God, so much challenging. And, oh, my life's a mess. But we really have been looking at it like, what's this teaching us right now? What is
Mm.
this offering us? How is this serving us so that then we'll be ready for whatever comes next?
Mm.
There's always wisdom in everything. So I think that's the same for you, like not pushing either one of these situations too much, even though you did get in the argument with the guy in Aries, which totally makes sense from the little I know about astrology. Who doesn't want to argue with Aries? Um,
It's so
But also
fun
I'm
in a
kinda
way.
curious, like, if things are opening up for other people too in this Leo energy.
Yeah.
I'm not like I've said before, I think I'm mildly into numerology, astrology, but my friend Remington Donovan, who I grew up with in Yogaville, he has an incredible couple books he wrote about numerology.
Mm.
And one just quick thing he was saying today is like, um, when you see numbers in sets of 3,
Mm.
that can often be just sort of like a sign that you're on the right path. And so kind of looking for like these little signs. And again, I just lightly dabble in astrology and numerology, but I just love that idea of like little things that can like, you can be like, okay, this is Leo energy. I can maybe have some movement in my life in this, or, I'm kind of unsure about this, but then I saw these sets of 3 numbers and what does that mean for me? And like how maybe that's a little sign that I can move forward in this
Yeah.
area. Do you look at
I was
numerology?
gonna
Are you
say,
really
yeah. I mean, I was gonna say you're talking to that is, um, yeah, that's just like tip of the iceberg for me. I mean, that is. I mean, I have many stories on that. Even the apartment that my like instructor, her name's Libby Harrison, by the way. Big shout out to her in Colorado, in Denver. But and then Shane, they both teach at Black Swan, but Shane's moving. So he's moving to the DC area. Yeah, his apartment was 444. Um, we I mean, numerology to me is just I think that applies to literally every single thing. So, when you start paying attention to plants, like pine trees versus oak versus maple versus, hydrangeas versus hostas versus crabgrass versus bluegrass, like, and you start to learn the qualities of these things, like, you can even do it for yourself. But, a huge element of life, I think, is symbolic sight. So, that's very important, is, like, to be able to see symbolism in things. You know, um you know, the planets are just one example. Animals, like the different types of animals, how they naturally are. That's why, like, animals are assigned to signs, like, if as an example, in all astrological traditions. But there are uh animals, different types of people. I would even say countries. I would even say, like, there's different ways you can look at things, like, physically, or you can look at them symbolically, and that's why I really like math. Like, I've always been into math, and, like,
Mm,
to me, when I was like, after I completed my education and then I started to learn more, like, I was very well versed in the exoteric math. But the philosophers that created these equations were extremely esoteric. They weren't thinking, like, just physically, like, they were thinking metaphysically. And so when you start to have, like, more of an abstract understanding of numbers, like 3 represents something, 4 represents something, 5, 2, whatever. In every culture, like, if you're and you can allow that, like, no one has to be right over the other. Like, everybody can kind of absorb, and you usually find similar things. But like in feng shui, each area of life is given a number. All the signs are given a number slash a house. Like, so numerology is, there's 7 main planets, all these different things. So you can always look at a number in its context, and even as the more that you quote unquote know, or the more impressions you have in your mind, like the more associations that, like, I feel like God might be able to communicate through you. So like that's kind
Mhm.
of how I look at it, where it's like, we have this card deck. It's called an animal spirit deck. So even though we might not independently put much thought into, fox or whatever, but when you read the cards and you know a little bit about foxes, or you watch Animal Planet about foxes, there does seem to be there does seem to be some sort of correlation,
I love
Now,
that you chose fox because D and I have a
mm,
thing where every time we go out driving, I see a
mm,
fox. And so clearly, like, fox is like my animal. And so I'm
yeah,
always trying to like read up on foxes and see what foxes mean.
yeah. I'm like, hold up, can I pause for a second? I want to pull my card, and I need to text this dude. We have a fire alarm inspection at 10, or like a fire inspectors. So let me check real quick.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Okay. We're back.
Hey everybody. We were talking about Fox, right? Anything else we were talking about?
Mhm.
So there's this animal spirit deck. It's called The Wild Unknown by Kim Cross.
Mm.
This is like a little,
That's beautiful. I've never seen that one.
and then this is the artwork for Fox. Cool. It's
Mm.
funny, at my like at the job site where I kind of like really shifted, we would see foxes literally every single day. That was like our like pet there. So, um, and this is just for proof. Reading from this. Cool. So it says smart. So there's like words on
Quentin,
the
I
top.
think that, hold on. Quentin, before you move forward,
Yeah.
I think that your mic is rubbing against your zipper because we're getting just a little bit of interference.
Kidoki. Artichoke. Give me 1 second. Okay. I think before it was far away. All right. How about now? Well, it's not.
That's
We'll
better.
we'll
Thank you.
see. Cool. Let's see. So let me find Fox again. Um, and this was the year, like, basically, that like Soph and I were getting engaged. Anyways, Fox, smart, strong partner or mate, wise teacher. The fox is an enchanting creature with plenty of mystique to go around. Fox personalities are skillful in business and also make great teachers. They are quick to learn and adapt well to new situations. Foxes are ideal life partners as they commit to relationships for the long term, and their natural charisma keeps things exciting. Fox energy helps us stay true to those most dear to us. When this card appears, reconnect to those you love. Foxes don't do well when they slip away. When in balance, magical, ingenious teacher, monogamous. When out of balance, sneaky, unsure of their identity. To bring into balance, partnership and connection.
Hmm.
Fox.
That's a lovely card deck.
Yeah. So every time I see Fox, I draw 2 cards every morning. So as I'm starting to slowly memorize the deck or certain things, as I see them in nature, like dragonfly or butterfly or hummingbird, it also helps, like, just like a quick like snap back to know what this means. Because then as you learn the numbers, like 444 means something different than 333, then 555, and 777. Just because it means it to you, it means it. And I think that, like, sometimes we get so, like, caught up in, like, "Oh, is that technically true? Is that scientifically provable?" It's like, no, like, I believe God's trying to speak to us individually through the language in which we can speak, not, like, in some other language. Like, so, yeah, as you interpret things and start to associate things in nature and stop, like, assuming that you know everything about it, like, when it comes to things that are most important to you, like, That's what I found. So like if someone has like a mushroom card deck, I'll look at that one and I'm like, okay, what's lines? What do they think about lines man versus reishi versus this? Like, because you can use the same messaging, it's the same archetypes, like across all these different cultures that are really the same thing. But when you start to observe the quality of different living beings, you realize that everything around you is a sign, like literally everything. So I drive a lot, like in DC, so that really got me into numerology. Like, so our favorite number, our family number is 52, 5 for change and 2 for partnership. And like our partnership causes change. That's like kind of like what it feels like. So yeah, so it's like when we found this spot, it was it was 520. So we were like, oh, that's a great sign. And it had Rasta colors. So with colors too, colors also mean something. So each color has a meaning. So we pay attention to that. 552 is our favorite my favorite number. And like any organization in 52, time if it's 52, anything like that, it's like something significant's happening. Like even now, every time I look at my phone, it's either whole hours, 30 minutes, or 52. Or 444 or 111. Like the call I had with that guy, it ended at 1111. So just the more that you look for these signs and attribute them, I think, to something above you, the more that like those things start to help you out. And so to me, it's like I don't know everything. I don't know, I might not know how to solve every situation, but I can look for signs and um understand that like, okay, at least I'm not alone in this moment. Like I'm not being forgotten about. And the sign and I might even still second guess myself in that moment. But yeah, so all those different things, numerology, astrology, like on my journal, for example, every morning I try to journal and it's like I have several sections and it's like the first section is um the theme for the sign. So I do the yamas and the yamas. I assign them to each sign, and then I do hatha and japa for the other two. So this is hatha, Leo is, and so I write like the day, the date, and then hatha, and then underneath that I write the astrology. So I write the sign of the sun sign, the moon sign, and then for each day, like I'll assign like a certain theme for the day. So today is hatha and serve because it's Tuesday,
Oh,
and Monday's
wow.
something different. And then I have my base 4, so this is, like, every day you focus on your dharma. Every day, like, I say swadharma. Every day I focus on my sadhana. Every day I focus on sangha, and then every day I focus on my sankalpa, my, like, resolve. And that's my base 4, and then the next section underneath that is, like, what is the sadhana? It's like there's a morning, midday, evening practice, and then prayer. And then what else do I wanna emphasize? Emphasizing playing. In Leo, I emphasize more sobriety. Then I emphasize whatever I'm emphasizing for that day, like, money fasting or maybe silence or maybe food fasting, and those are assigned to certain days. This is just superintendent engineering mind stuff. It's all in engineering paper. And then the next thing is like I draw the 2 cards and I take the advice, like what advice does the card give for how to get in balance, and I make that my resolve for that day. If I don't do anything else, I'm gonna try to at least do these things. Um, and then I have like, what is my duty for today? Record podcast, do this class,
Mhm.
paint this room, and I only do 5. And then so that's the morning section, and in the evening section, it's sketch. So I just sketch. And then after I'm done sketching, I do an accountability paragraph. So like, how did I do with my sadhana? How did I da 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 da? And then it's just like, and then usually it just turns into just like a message of encouragement at the end, right? And then it's the next day. So that has definitely helped. And when Mercury's in retrograde, guess what I don't do? None of that. Like I barely do that. Like it impacts it. My journaling gets jacked up, my accountability gets jacked up, my practice gets jacked up, I fall behind on things, and then when I try to do things, the technology's jacked up. So, but that's just me.
Beautiful, though, to create some sort of, like you were saying, it's about the meaning for the individual. And so finding like what that meaning might be for you as an individual, because the truth is like, or the truth is, one perspective is that it doesn't, your thoughts matter, but they don't matter. What matters is how they make you feel. And if
Yeah.
they're uplifting and they're causing good
Yeah.
feelings, then those are going to be good thoughts for you to cultivate.
Mm.
So if you are the kind of person who finds signs in the world to be supportive and useful, and it uplifts you and it gives you some sort of sense of, some people use pendulum, some people use, numerology, some people just look for
Crystals.
general signs of the things like you said, colors. And I think the key is finding what resonates with you and then just doing it. Like, don't drive yourself crazy over it, but definitely using it as a guide. There's no problem with that. I think that like we all could use a little bit more guidance or sense of guidance in our life because we certainly don't really feel like we have enough of it. I mean,
Yeah.
life seems so confusing and so out of control all the time that anything that can support us and feeling a little bit more connected and aligned is going to be a really useful thing. And then I like finding numbers. Numbers are fun because they're so prevalent all over the place. There's lots of people who,
Yeah.
particularly when the clock turns a certain time, people, you know, will honor that or make a wish or, there's lots of different ways that people create these little moments of connectivity or positivity or just meaning in their life. And I love that you even take it like a step further and you have like this whole like journal thing. I used to journal every single day. I was just like such a mad journaler. Oh my God. Like you would never see me without a notebook. And then something shifted in life and I really didn't need to journal anymore. It's really kind of funny
Mm.
because it was such a like important thing to me for so long.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, literally, I just was like, oh, I don't really journal. And then sometimes I go back to it, like I feel like it's supporting me. But I think also you can go through like, um, you know, ebbs and flows. I mean, if you had asked me before I was like, I guess probably, I don't know how old I was, maybe 30.
Yeah.
From the time I was like 12 to 30, I journaled like a maniac.
Mm.
And so if you'd asked me before 30 if there was going to be a day that I wasn't going to journal, I would have been like, are you crazy? Mm, and now at 53, it's probably the opposite. People are like, oh, would there be a time when you journal every day? And I'd be like, I don't know.
Maybe
So
not.
I think also the phase you're in and the cycle you're in and just, finding what's working for you at that moment.
Mm.
I know this is probably annoying because I say this so much, but it's really like you got to figure it out for yourself. There's no one
Absolutely.
size fits all for any of this stuff. And that's what I really love about integral yoga, as taught by Swami Satchidananda, because one of the things that he did with yoga is he said there is no one size fits all.
Yeah.
You could be a
Yeah.
japa yogi, you could be a jnana yogi, you can be a raja yogi, you can be a karma yogi, you can be a bhakti yogi.
Mm.
All of those things are valid and they're all equal. And
Mm.
sometimes you can be a little bit of all of them, or sometimes you can just choose to dedicate your life to one of them. And all of
Mm.
those are valid paths. Like truth is one, paths are many. And I feel the
Mm.
same way about like numerology or astrology is your thing. Like go with it. It's what resonates with you. It's what's, you know, feeling in alignment with whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing in life. I have a couple of friends who are really super into astrology. They follow Chani Nichols. Do you know who that is?
No.
Chani Nichols. They love her so much. Like they're constantly like quoting her and talking about her.
Mm.
Um, I'm not into astrology enough, I guess, to like, follow her that closely, but she is the little bit that I've read of her, she's pretty awesome. Or watched her. Uh, so I think it's just finding the thing that like really, resonates and uplifts you. It should be uplifting. I think whatever it is, like what would uplift you? Like life is so hard. We feel so bad like most days. I mean, life is so difficult most days. Then why not lean into the stuff that's going to make you feel better and uplifted?
Yeah, it's like it's funny that you say that because all these things I was completely uncomfortable with all my life. Like even journaling each day, I was like, that's ridiculous. Like I used to never do that, and I didn't like astrology. Like I thought it's funny. I remember having a debate with my like best friend's little sister, after I like kind of first got into astrology, and she was like, "You can't find astrology in the Bible, so what is this?" Like, or numerology or any of these things or crystals or any. And that's like the main force in a lot of people, plus the education system. And that like, like in yoga, what I love most about yoga, like, the analogy I use is like the idea of creation is that like consciousness is like the canvas and like life or nature is like painted onto it. So everything is conscience, like the basic blocks of all what we call the material or even the imaginative universe. It all is comprised of consciousness. And so once I was able to digest that thought, now it seemed like, okay, all of these things are, um, all of these things are like, why not, or more so, why not like build consciousness into every aspect of your life? Like we're talking about goals and visions is like, I want to build like, and I will be building like developments, multi-acre developments that are like, did I tell you about bushcraft yet last time, or did I dream that? But
So tell us about it.
just like tree houses, cob structures, like earth packing, which is like just these different like in bushcraft it
Obsessed with bag building, so I totally
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah,
I
like
got
you
really
can do
obsessed with it about 20 years ago and was like, "Oh my god, everybody should be building earth bag houses."
yeah, especially with how much plastic we have. Like that could be a good way to recycle the plastic that we use. But like I quite frankly think of them as like, I try to be like the to rebel against like the traditional colonial system of like building, building essentially city states that revolve around the government. Really, like literally, the capital's in the middle. Then there's like the library, the police station, the church. Like it was someone thought of that, and like so I'm thinking I can think of something different and
Maybe the
implement it.
library can stay the center of
Yeah,
it,
yeah, well,
though.
but that makes the library now
Not the
suspicious.
library, Quentin!
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so funny. It's funny. The job that I'm trying to get would be at the library and the Denver Public Library, and the boss that I had that I really respect, built it, um,
Wow.
the first time. So, anyways, but yeah, so that's kind of I kind of lost my train of thought
You
for a
were
second
talking
there.
about building your,
Yeah, like we
like,
need to build like
clubhouses and
yeah, like
so what
what?
go ahead. I was just
Nah,
gonna say, so what tell us more vision, like, what's your vision for it?
yeah, so yeah, it's like I guess I want to say like more so that I think people should realize that the world that we live in has been envisioned. Like this physical all like none of these roads had to be built this way. They all could have been done 10 degrees differently. Like it not to be so certain that like to have less certainty in the physical structures that are built around you. Like I think that like people do kind of sort of, but like when you're a construction superintendent and you study land development and you study like design and I don't know if I told you this, like on the PE exam, they switched like the numerator and the denominator on one of the equations in the code. So they're like, yeah, we used to do it this way. Now we're flipping the equation for the numerator and the denominator. So like it could be 1/2 or 2. That's a huge difference. So like I'm not saying to go rebuilding shaking, like, because obviously that's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying like think of it as this has already been thought of, and this was like, people always talk about, imperialism and the colonial da 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 da. Like this is downstream of that, and like the current results, the America that I live in right now is that like we make up reasons to bomb other countries, like so there has to be something wrong with the structure, and even like in Europe the same thing. Like after slavery ended, there was 200 years of imperialism directly on the countries that they were previously, trading the slaves from. So all of this kind of stuff is like there must be something downstream of this way of construction, this way of looking at the world. Um, yeah. So, anyways, but so that's why I want to do like essentially the opposite of that, where we have like self-sufficient communities that aren't you know, you don't have to build a quarry. Like as soon as you go to a place, if you want to build a Capitol building, they're even talking about the Colorado Capitol building. This is the perfect example. They have this type of marble or something that was only found, like they literally used where it existed in nature, they literally used all of it on the Capitol building. They're like, it was this like striation was like only found in this elevation. They couldn't find it anywhere else, so they use it all for the Capitol. Like that mindset, that mind frame, yeah, that can't continue. So the only way to like, is just have an alternative. So yeah, we need to have like more and more and more and more of those like self-sufficient kind of communities that are built like using the wisdom and all over the world. Like you can still use Starlink. I mean, Starlink, they're up there. So there's Starlink. We can have like little compact AC units. I'm not saying we have to live like, some people can live more primarily, but I'm not saying that's the standard of living. That's not the standard of living that I'm looking for. But the main problem to that would be the international building code because like that, the colonial trade, the industries like the lumber industry, you know, the all of these major material industries are like 400 years old, and they built the code that governs them. And in that code, the International Building Code, and then the American Building Code, and then Virginia Building Code, and then Fairfax Building Code, they're all downstream of that. And by law, they're mandating that like, yeah, when we go to places we build quarries or we do this or we we need this type of lumber. Because it's like what people, and I took wood design, so it's like in wood design they would be like you can do the equations, but
Yeah.
we like have a safety factor of 5. So you need 5 times as much material than the equations say you need. And you're like, is that only because of safety? Like, I'm sure, yeah, okay, factor of 2, if I'm sure, whatever. But is that strictly for safety, or is that so that you can cut down more trees and make more money? And when I went to I was gonna say when I went to Belize, I was confirmed because I met a person who built a sanctuary to protect like the trees there because Belize for is essentially really a colony. Their money's controlled by Britain still. Um, but yeah, their main industry is lumber, and they just keep cutting down all their trees. So it's not in the countries necessarily that it's happening. I mean, you are cutting down trees in Virginia to build your little parking lot mall, but on a grander scale, like we're cutting down other countries, we're cutting down the world and using their resources to build our civilization. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
like the
absolutely.
greater vision of what I'm trying to do that maybe won't really come to fruition for another 200 years, but like we have to like transmute the city state model into one that's less destructive for the planet, or we'll live in like Coruscant where the whole world is covered in concrete.
Yeah, it's also really sad because like all these small businesses or like little kind of mom and pop type places,
Mm,
they can't really keep up with that code all the time. It can be really challenging.
yeah.
So you start losing sometimes. I mean, it's such a catch-22. Obviously, safety can be important, but sometimes in the effort of being overly safe, and of course we live in like this super litigious society, but
Mm,
in the effort of being overly safe, then we miss out on these really sweet gems. Like there used to be this incredible restaurant. Now, granted, I couldn't eat anything at this restaurant
mm.
except for one time it did have a piece of pie and it did have lard. I have to say, I did not know it had lard at the time. But there was this like,
Uh-oh.
really
No, fine.
famous like restaurant. It's famous. There was this great restaurant in our county called Monroe's Kitchen. And Mr. Monroe, it like basically looked like an old like house.
Mm,
Um that was not very big. And there was like a back porch and there were some like plastic chairs and tables. And Mr. Monroe uh reportedly made some of the best food in the county.
mm,
I love to just go to Monroe's Kitchen and drink lemonade because, like I said, I couldn't eat any of the food.
mm.
One bite of that pie was like, "Ooh, there's something on the top of my mouth that was
Yeah.
not something to be eating." Um, but the point is like Monroe's Kitchen couldn't exist now. There's no
Mm,
way. The health department, the building codes, uh, what's interesting is even when we had the coffee shop, from that health inspector to the next health inspector, they got so much stricter about the codes on the building that the
Yeah.
people who moved in and opened a restaurant after us, they said all these things that we were able to do with our coffee shop, they weren't gonna let them do for the restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's like we miss out, or if you think about, like, even there used to be this really cool place called Mrs. Gray's Store here in Buckingham
Mm.
also, that I'm sure it just got to the point at some point, all the codes and, like, all the stuff she had to follow and all the things that she would've had to do just became, you know, too much of a headache to really follow up on. But I think you lose a lot of community, culture, individuality, uniqueness when you make everything so difficult that only big corporations can afford to follow all the codes and guidelines you need to do, because it was really expensive as just like, individual people to open up a restaurant like we had to open. So I feel a little sad about that. And you're right, like it is something that was decided upon. We have so many memes, right, about what you could get away with in the '70s, like what Gen X kids grew up
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
just would not fly at all today,
Yeah.
right? There's so many codes and so many regulations and, I mean, and I'm not saying it's bad, like, seatbelts are good, but there is something that's like that memory of, like, laying in the back of your mom's station wagon reading a book on a long trip because there were no seatbelts.
Exactly. Or
The
learning to
memory,
drive
like,
at
a lot of
12.
kids don't get to have now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't require us to wear seatbelts in the back seats. That wasn't a thing, so you would just lay out the seats in the station wagon. We just pile all the blankets back there, and we just all lay down and read our books wherever, on a long trip or wherever we're going, take a nap.
You
My kids
know,
now are in car seats, they don't get to take naps. I feel really sad for them. So, I'm not saying, like, we should do away with seatbelts, because seatbelts save a lot of lives. But it is kind of this idea of, like, there's in the efforts to extend life, to save lives, to make life safer, to avoid, lawsuits, all of these things, we lose out on some really sweet or riding in the back of a pickup truck. Oh, that's such a good memory. Piling into the back of the pickup truck with all your cousins and
yeah,
siblings and going somewhere and the wind in your hair and just that feeling of how awesome it is to ride in the back of a pickup truck, that I'm
beautiful.
like, so many young people will never get to experience that because it's not safe and it's not legal anymore. Like, you can't be riding around with people in the back of your pickup truck. But
Oh,
it's such a sweet memory.
I mean, I have so much to say. I mean, like, first I wanna start with the code and then the truck and then really everything because there's always we have like always, we have so much in common and in complementing ways. So, the I think that the main problem is and, like, I'm talking to your our New Yorker friends, like, teasing you, but, like, there's, like, an idea that, like or just maybe this is a New Yorker thing, but in general, like, there's an idea that, like, codes or really most regulations in general, like, come from a good-hearted place. And I think this is so strange as, like, someone who, grew up around Thomas Jefferson and is like, why would you trust why are y'all trusting like, the idea is that, like, the government is so untrustworthy that it has to be set up in a way that it's always in conflict with itself so that it can't be in conflict with others. And I think the logic that was flawed there was that if you're in internal conflict, you're gonna cause external conflict. But still, the idea, regardless, was that, like, th ultimately can't be trusted because this is there's really, it's like a necessary kinda evil kinda thing, but rather than, like, this is gonna be like, yeah, this is actually, like, the best case scenario, and so when I'm, like, because I'm so close to building inspectors, I've submitted permits for multi-million dollar buildings, like, with my name on it, so I've dealt with the inspectors in the building codes and, I mean, construction is like when you think about it, construction and downstream is the most regulated because we're regulated on how we build, like,
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
through, all these different things, so, like, yeah, and this is another thing that I mean, like, in construction, we know the OGs. Like when they started working 40 years ago, like they didn't even have to wear pants. Like, now you look like a Power Ranger when you go to the job site. Like you're literally dressed up like you got neat, everything's covered. Like especially during
Yeah,
COVID,
we have so many pictures of, like, my dad and my uncle, like, maybe out on, like, a job site without their shirts on.
literally, literally, and like
There's no
you
protective gear.
no protective gear. What I'm getting at though is like we do have to realize that there is a trade-off. Like you I think that some people prefer safe over faith, and that's
Mhm.
drawing them to fearful thinking. And the fearful thinking is really the problem, like we're talking about. Like using fear as a tool to make decisions is self-defeating, because like you said, the energy that the thoughts give you or matter, because like you said, yoga really isn't about the thoughts. Like and a lot of other schools of thoughts, um this might lead into the book I was listening to, but a lot of other schools of thoughts think that like your mind generates your reality, like your thought patterns, the most prominent beliefs and desires that you hold, like that is what's creating your reality and then everybody else's reality. In some so the
Wait, you
like
gotta tell us the name of the book. You
oh, okay.
can't
All right,
forget.
all right, all right. I want to finish the code thing. All right, all right. Hold on to
Okay.
that. I want to finish the code thing because I think this is extremely important. So when it comes to construction, I think it's also important to realize like this is why I brought up the IBC code and its history, right? So its current manifestation is like, you know, you go to school to become an engineer. You get taught the equations, like you get taught the math. Then you become like a senior essentially, and they're like, okay, like in order to this is how you pass. This is how you pass steel design. This is how you pass a steel design 1, 2, 3, whatever. Even if you get a master's, like probably there's higher level classes in design. But at the end of the day, when you graduate and you work for a company, they just give you a code book and they say this is the code book, like use these equations that are in the code book or reference the code rather than free think, like sort of how you were in college where you had to use deduction and like figure out your own way to figure out the answers. And you also realize that when you're using equations, you see yourself as an equation builder. Like I see myself in the lineage of equation builders because these things didn't exist at a certain point and then they did because someone thought of it and then people critiqued it and sharpened it. So all of us, anybody that's exposed to that, like that guy's not better than me. That guy had a mop, like that guy showered with a bucket, like you know what I mean? Like once a month, like you're gonna tell me Pythagorean has something that we don't have, or these people don't, like, no, I'm not falling for that. So, but when you get into the code, it's like this is by the book. So that's why I like the OGs, because they're like their breadth of knowledge on how to solve problems, because there wasn't someone just telling you how to do something, is so wide. It's so like their problem solving is just like incredible, because like we try to do it this way, then this way, then this way, then this way, because they had more free reign to how to make decisions. But when you get the layer of safety, and this is the main thing, is like the people in the field, they always disagree with the code because the code actually doesn't always implement that with what you're acting, or it's inconsistent. So like I'll use the easiest one. Most people die from falling off of something. It's in construction. So there's a lot of OSHA. I'm using OSHA OSHA is code. People need to think of it in that same boat. So
That is kind of that's
O- OSHA is code, right? So people fall off of things, right? But if you're a steel erector versus a different type of person, or if you're at a different phase of a job, or the finished conditions don't meet the conditions of construction code. All you'll be like, okay, if you're an electrician, I'm just using like not an electrician. If you're a steel erector, you can be 10 feet tall without being tied off. But if you're another person, you can only be 6 feet tall without being tied off. But to an engineer, you're thinking, no, the height should be what are the physics in which a person would fall typically and have a serious injury. Like that would be the math. But if you're saying no, like, hypothetically speaking, these two 18-year-old kids, just because one's a steel erector and one's a plumber, this kid still has no experience working at height, or like fall protection, like a harness. So like sometimes you have no choice, you have to be really high up, like steel erectors, for example. You're on a steel beam, there's no floor around you, and you have to keep building. So you have to be like tied off. But tied off is essentially like a retractable steel wire or a retractable seatbelt with the hook on
Mhm.
it. And then you have a
Yeah.
harness. It's funny, if you're a hiker, you know what a hiker harness is. It's just around the hips and the legs, and it does literally the same action, like it prevents you from falling. But the construction one, you got to look like you're Iron Man because you have to because it costs more. But whatever, it passes testing. So the way the code is written is like in order to even have a harness that'll pass testing, you have to spend like $5 million. You have to test the system, this simple seatbelt system, you know, or this harness a million times. And so that's like how you get caught up in like you can't even make a company that would even compete with that. Or they'll say like or they'll just say like, "Oh, that's a non-tested, that's a non-authorized company." But like, bro, it's really not that hard to do what you're doing. Like what are you talking about? Like and so that's like the portion when it comes to implementing the code and like how companies can even form in the first place. But the people that create the code, OSHA in its code, it references standards. So it's not like OSHA itself is creating code. It's the standards, or you should say the private entities that are creating the text of them. And who gets to be on the board of American Standard for Steel or American Standard for Concrete? Who are the people that get to sit on those boards? They're not the startups. You know, they're the guys that already have hundred billions of dollars in revenue. All right. Who are the contractors that are in these conversations? It's the $1 billion boys because they only have 5, 7 seats at the table. You know what I mean? To even make these decisions, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen at the end of the day. Yeah, there's public input, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like these large companies are creating these standards, and lo and behold, you have to use more and more and more material. Lo and behold, you can't just have your little restaurant anymore. You have to buy this and add this and shift this and do this and buy this. And and they're using fear, right? Like they're saying, hey, over here in Minnesota, now we have international news adding the media. Oh, over here a building collapsed. So we're going to implement a building code change to every single building that gets built anywhere before the investigation's even over and through. You know what I mean?
I think the famous, example of that was the McDonald's coffee,
Yeah.
where the lady spilled hot coffee on herself and sued. I think it was McDonald's, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, the hot coffee lady. She spills hot coffee on herself and then she
Really?
sues. And now every single time we drink a cup of coffee, everybody's got to have like a label on it that says caution, hot.
Yeah. And it's
Well, it's hot
restricting.
coffee.
Yeah.
Like, so then you get to the point where like people are so like, it does become really restrictive. And I guess going back again to like some of the stuff that I got to experience as a kid, uh, I do feel for people who are younger now and their life is
Right.
so restricted and they don't get
Right.
to experience like a little bit of that freedom that we got to have when we were kids, because it does feel like life is getting more regulated and more restricted, and people are fearful of what's going to happen. And also, again, I do think, uh, we do live in a litigious society, which is funny because I always say if I was a lawyer, I'd want to sue everybody for everything all the time. But it is true that like when we have constant lawsuits and we're all trying to come after each other all the time for things that are just pretty human and normal, it causes a situation where I'm not really sure that everybody wins in the end. Um,
No,
and
never.
then there's other stuff that's like so unregulated, right? That's like, I wish they'd protect us more. I
Right.
wish the government would take a little bit more of a protective status when you're talking about food. Food, I wish they would be more strict
Yeah.
about food. I love going to Europe because it just feels like when you eat food in Europe, you don't have as many reactions. It doesn't cause, people can't eat gluten in the US and then they go to Europe and can eat bread. And So it's frustrating because, like, it is a little extreme of how, but I think anything in extremity, like in these extremes, is going to be too much. So we don't want no regulation, but also we don't want overregulated. I mean, I think that's, coming back to like this idea of yoga, like it's all about balance. It's all about finding this harmony of the way that you're living.
The thing that you said earlier is like there is no one size fits all. And I think that that is in conflict with the idea of regulation in a way. Like because well, or like that level of regulation, like detailed, like all the way down. It should be like more like tailored around self-regulation, right? Like, you know, I was gonna say, like, there's a lawyer lobby. That's why we live in a litigious society. There's a powerful food lobby. That's why we have problems with food. And I think the problem is like there's this tool that can just be like, you have to do this forever. Like you have to do this forever. You have to give us your money forever, and it has to like contribute to things that are self-harming, and not only self-harming, but they're harming people around the world by the very nature of how the society's put together. And like we literally say we're a consumer economy. We are a consumer society. That means that we get things from other places, right? Um and so I think like what's so interesting about having a powerful government is that no, people thought that they were regulating food. That's not the problem. Everybody thought that they were, everybody, if you ask my mom, she would have been like, they're not going to let us eat food that's poisonous to us. That's why they're there. That's why there's this FDA. And I think that there's a principle here that needs to be remembered that like, it's not possible. It's not that it's like, because at the end of the day, like people, we're talking about Leo, like people have stuff about them that they don't want to confront. And as soon as those things get uh if it's not time and you don't have the strength to confront them, all of us do. Every single person that you know, like at any given time. So like under those circumstances, some people, um, some industries, some systems, can be under the influence. That's where the book goes in. The book, I want to give a shout out. So there's a rapper named Russ, and he's sort of he's important because a lot of like the industry, when I say industry, I say like popular media plus like what like the music industry. He's like a rapper. So he's like
Okay.
the media's opinion on him as a rapper was very negative. But really it's because he owns all his music. He's a very like independent artist and doesn't want to sign and stuff like that. And he has a very positive message. So he dropped a new album, and there's this kid that does interviews of like millionaires, or he just finds like rich people, and he does like a very thoughtful interview. But it's like a 2 minute kind of quick, like, what's your advice? Like da 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 da. Da. So he was taught his main advice was like lust. He was like, men are losing the lust. When you control your lust, you're able to transmute it into like productive, creative energy. Um, and then he was like, he recommended a book called Outwitting the Devil by
Hmm.
Napoleon Hill.
Oh, interesting. Napoleon
And
Hill.
yeah, so I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And then um now I'm listening to this audiobook, and um I really like it. Like it's a very interesting, it's very, very, very interesting. And um what I like about it, what it kind of expands on is like there's a concept of the devil or concept of the enemy in a lot of like faith traditions. But sometimes it's not like really articulated that well.
Mhm.
It's very much like, stay away from this. This is bad. Fear this. And the whole concept of the book is like the first portion of the book is he's talking about like a struggle that he was going through in his life. And he was like, I wrote this book called Think and Go Rich. I'm well known for what I do, and like basically positive thinking, but I'm struggling. and he was like, I'm having a hard time. So what helped me in my hardest time? Well, he was like, well, I realized that I have a connection to an other self, like I have a connection to like he was like basically he was basically explaining what I would say, or a lot of people would say, connecting to your higher self, connecting to God, or connecting to intuition. He was like, I just asked, like, what do I do? I don't have any money. I'm running out of this. This is what's happening. And he was like, something told him to go to Chicago, ask your brother for $50, and like things started to shift. And I do want to say, like, I
Yeah,
really
it's interesting.
emphasize,
So if you look at this book, guys, it says, I've just looked it up on Wikipedia. It says Outwitting the Devil is a work of nonfiction that was written in 1938 by Napoleon Hill,
yeah,
which was considered too controversial to be published in its era. The book is written as an interview between Hill, quote Mr. Earthbound, and the devil, inner dark self, wherein Hill attempts to uncover the secrets to freedom and success by evaluating the greatest obstacles that humans face in
mhm,
order to attain their personal goals in life.
yeah. And
Some
it's
wealth and
so,
wisdom. Napoleon Hill in 1938.
yeah, yeah. And, um, yeah, I like the point of view. I like the point of view of, I think that our world history is always dominated by the wars. So it's interesting for me to hear like I even mentioned like anatomy of the state, or like war is a racket, or these different things. Like I'm more interested in like other points of view than the point of view that was like always so dominant in all of our lives. But so what was there were so many interesting elements of that book, but the thing that really made me realize that this is going to be like a deep book that I could respect was, he starts off the interview with the devil, and the first thing the devil says to him is, he goes, "You can't refer to me with so much disrespect. You have to refer to me as your majesty, because I control 98% of the people on earth." Then he says what everybody else would say, like, A, no, and B, what proof do you have of this? And he goes, and then he explains, he's like, I'm what you can call, what you humans call negative thought energy, negative thinking patterns. So the whole book is explaining how, imagine if negative thinking patterns were coordinated under one consciousness. Now, how would that consciousness use different tools in society, different instruments in its end? Because the main thing he said, he's like, I hate you. That's my only way to operate. Like, but I have to operate this way. I'm in balance. I'm in balance with what a lot of you earthbound beings call God. And why I think it resonates to me is because it's like it falls in the concept of overall creation. Because he's like, you guys call it God. He doesn't call it God. That's why it's interesting. He says it's my
Yeah.
counterpart. He's like, this is my counterpart. So he's like, you call it love, hope, compassion. This is my counterpart. And he's like, basically, I live where fear is. And the way to look at fear is anywhere faith isn't. So if there's any fear in your mind, like like, and what's cool about it is he goes, as he's talking to him, Napoleon Hill's like, speak to me in language in which I can understand. Like, don't speak to me in high language. And he keeps like challenging him and being like, why would you do this? He's like, and he's like, there's like 2% of the people that I don't completely control, and 98% of the people I do control. And he's explaining how the main tool of control is drifting. And he goes, drifting from
Mhm.
free thinking.
Hmm.
And he goes, the main tool that I use to keep people from drifting from free thinking is habit. There's also many other tools, but you use and habit is under what we could call hypnotic vibration. There's a law of hypnotic vibration, or if you do things over and over again, at a certain point, like it it it's forced to continue, essentially. Um, so yeah, he's like, I essentially cause people to wander from their own free thought, and he's like, I use parents, the faith, in school. And he's talking about different tools, and he's like, but that's how the whole book is it's just like, and the idea is that like Napoleon Hill is like, he's like, you don't have to believe this is a conversation with the devil. Like, you could just me just thinking about whatever. But just pay attention to like what the actual information is being conveyed. And what was so cool, like, and another thing that made me realize it, another thing that really, I'm about to tear up. One thing that really made me like feel like there was something in this book was because he asked the devil, he's like, what's the one main tool that women can use to like get their needs in the world? Because this is like, I know this is 1938, so it's men and women, right?
Right.
But it could still apply for men, I guess. He says the response is like, he says it's a facial expression. That's it. He was like, that's it? He was like, yes, it's a facial expression. He's like, essentially like whatever I would say, like whatever you can consider like a seductive face or like a face that you want to make. He's like, that's all it takes. And I remember thinking to myself, like, when I think of like Safa or just someone that I love the most, it's like the face that you think of is like, is that face is like a, yeah, it's like even in the media, right? It's never some girl going like, it's some woman going like,
Mm.
making this face, right? Doing this with their ways, like, taking their time, like, and it was just such an interesting specific thing. I advise everybody to listen to it because because Napoleon Hill, he drags him. He's like, I want every single detail because I want to know. And he's basically, the devil keeps saying over and over again, he's like, he's like, first of all, I make people, um, consider me their counterpart. That's how I trick people. So a lot of people think God is the devil. They think
Mm.
fear. They
It's
think
like
fear is what'll
negativity and
keep
that
them
fear
safe.
and that negative thinking is God.
Is God.
Huh.
That's my main
Interesting.
trick. So I go into schools and to parents through conditional love, schools for through their indoctrination system of like not teaching they teach memorization but not free thinking. And then
Mhm.
religious institutions, kind of in obvious ways by saying like, there's no other way to think except for the way that we all think here in this room together. So, um, so it's a fascinating book, and what was really nice about it, Radha, was that as he Napoleon is asking questions at the same time that I'm asking the same question because it comes to a point where he's like, the devil's like, he's like, devil's like, why are you asking me advice? Or why wouldn't you go to my counterpart? And then he's also asking him, but the idea that's really important that like just for people just to kind of like let go of like is that it's interesting they called it nonfiction, but it's just like imagine the devil has to be absolutely truthful. And what he keeps saying over and over again is he's like, people will not accept this book coming out. This information cannot come out of this time. He's like, and this is before World War II. And he's like, war is just a dressed up way for me to murder people. All these things, anything that causes like suffering, like I want it all, you know? Um, and so it really helped me, gave me the courage to be like, oh, because the devil's basically saying his main point is like, I'm working the whole time. I'm not done. I'm not sitting back. While you're sitting back, I'm working. That's that David Goggins energy. That's how David Goggins comes useful. He's like, you can't, it's okay. Yeah, you do have to rest, but understand that like, or it's okay to have the point of view that like there's a force of habit. Habits are being created whether you want them to or not. It's an automatic function of time. And wise men, whatever, use time to their advantage. They build habits that they want to have. And then eventually you don't have to journal anymore. You only journal from 12 to 30 and then now you're like, okay, I can put the journal down. Because these are just ultimately tools that get you to a place. Um, so like my little journaling thing that I brought up earlier, that's not a flex. It's just like I'm at the point right now where I have to journal. I didn't journal before. I needed to now. I might not in the future. But when I don't journal, I still feel that guiding force, that presence still in my life. And that's how I know it's not the journaling that's doing it. This is just me like, this is just my little way to like have some fun while I'm here. So yeah,
That
any
was
more questions
that
on the book? Sorry.
was so good. No, I'm really fascinated by this book and this idea of like God and the devil. Obviously, from a yogic perspective, we don't really look at like God and devil.
Yeah,
But we do look at like again what serves you, what's not serving you. And so like this idea of like this energy that's not serving you. And it is that negative talk, that negative thinking. So for those of you out there who also are not prescribed to it, don't not read the book. Just maybe
yeah,
change that language a little bit in your mind
yeah,
because I think that there's a lot of wisdom. Napoleon Hill was really interesting. I mean, the fact that he was writing what he was writing during the time he was writing was really cool. My grandfather actually uh was into reading lots of books like that, and
right,
he started meditating and doing like, crazy deep relaxation
yeah,
exercises when like back in like the 30s and 40s when he was working at baseball. So it's pretty fascinating.
mm,
He had a book called, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember. TNT, The Power Within You, I think was his favorite book. Um, and so around, it was probably written around the same time. I'm just going to see who the author is really quick. My brain is not so hot today. Claude Bristol and Harold Sherman.
mm.
And um, yeah, so my grandfather was like really into this same stuff, and it really paid off. Like you really saw like how he really crafted his life and his life story, especially
Mm.
utilizing these ideas. And Napoleon Hill is just like a fascinating one,
Ooh,
particularly.
can I say this because this is gonna lap to the beginning of the conversation? You maybe just popped
Yeah,
this into my
definitely.
mind. They emphasize definiteness, and I think that this is something about like old masculine culture that gets called toxic. Old men are very sure of themselves, like typically, in comparison to us young bucks, like or at least they come across that way. Like Donald Trump, not to wear his name out, but I would say he definitely embodies
Definitely
that.
sure of himself.
Yeah, he's sure is for himself, and they know what they're saying. All the OGs I met, but that's kind of the point, and that's a really like a really major crux of Think and Grow Rich. This book. Have you heard of the Kybalion?
The what?
Kybalion.
Uh,
That's
no.
another great one. Um, Talks about the hermetic laws of the universe, and the first one is like basically the law of mentality, or like basically the universe is mental. Another way to look at the universe is it's a mental creation. How does man create things without materials? Through the imagination. So if there's only one force or a creative force, what does it use to create things? It can't create things outside of itself. It has to create things within itself, the imagination. So around
Well,
that
it's so
time,
fascinating. Sorry. Also, when I think about like these early books, like
yeah,
how, uh, you know, Vivekananda came over to the US
yep,
and then
yep.
Yogananda came over.
Yep.
And I'm always kind of curious about like how those yogic teachings and those
The Kybalion
early teachers
he
really
used
influence,
I'm about to see if I can grab it just real quick. Hold on, see if I can.
how much they influence like these teachers. Like I don't know enough about, the history of these guys, but
Okay.
uh we were just talking about like the waves of yoga and the movements of yoga, and Dee and I were going through sort of like a timeline of when the different gurus showed up. And it is really interesting because Vivekananda came over and had such a huge influence on,
Mm,
American society back in like, I think it was like 1890s or something.
mm,
And then, of course, Yogananda showed up, and your autobiography of a yogi is a huge, huge influence for many, many, many people in yoga for the last 100 years. So it's interesting. And also, like, you're looking at, like, also these Napoleon Hill and people like that are the grandfathers of transformational leadership
yeah.
and these concepts and ideas. So it's really, yeah, it's interesting to see how it's all connected. So, okay,
Yeah.
so you're gonna pick up a book or
No,
get
yeah, I
some.
just grabbed like the Kybalion, written by the three initiates, and I'm just gonna like just skim the titles of them. But the first one is mentalism. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Correspondence as below, so as above, so below, as below, so above. And that means like both like small scale to large scale, there's similarities in like between the internal world and the exterior world. Vibration,
Mm,
nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Polarity, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Rhythm, everything flows out and in, everything has its tides, all things rise and fall. Cause and effect, every my favorite one. As every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens
karma
according
yoga,
to law.
anybody?
Yeah. And then it says it says gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has a masculine and feminine principles. Gender
Mm,
manifests on all planes. And so that's like eyeballing, it's like, the book itself is those are just the laws, but it's sort of like their interpretation and conversations about it. I'm not even showing you the book. Um,
there we go.
yeah, the book is just
Can we see
like,
the cover? Show us the cover for those
yeah,
of you who are
this is like a
watching us.
leather one. There might be like a paperback one.
Huh, the
Um,
Kybalion Hermetic Philosophy, 3 Initiates. Hmm.
yeah. And that's like
Alright.
based off of like, Egypt and Hermes and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
just like a lot of the idea is that and what Leo represents and maybe to like put it all together is the Leos are sure of themselves because there is, you could say Leo energy is that innate understanding that you are part of God. It's that like you can flex on yourself and you're not putting anybody else down because a lot of people need to realize like how awesome they are. Where it's like find joy in like talking about your triumph and living in courage and being rather than shutting that down and understanding that like it takes lion energy. Like Leo is the lion and it's the sun, so it represents that dominance. Sometimes it takes that dominant energy, that fearlessness, that courage to really get to the
Mm.
next level. Um, I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think I want to say this now that like when when okay, here we go. So that like that authenticness, that fearlessness, that expression is necessary. Like and I think like sort of like some of the dichotomy we're talking about, like everything has like its opposite poles. Sometimes that fiercity can come out as anger and domination and like stubbornness, but on the other hand it can come out as like just compassion, and it can come out as like oftentimes you confront things and you think that you need to use like fiercity, but oftentimes you just need compassion, because that with what you are challenged against can't conquer you. This is the lion and the sun, like, which that's what they represent. This is like the
Mm.
hottest season. You are unconquerable. Like these life challenges are all beneath you. Don't let anything that's happened to you hold you down in shame. Don't let these things like keep you under their grip. Like don't let these demons in the closet or these things like make you lose like sight of like who you are and what you are, that you have that like conquering capacity within you, that you don't need to shy away, and that you can build the life that you would like to live. So Leos are they're intimately correlated with that creative principle in life, that like that you have your interests, and that's okay, right? You have your quirks, and that's okay. Either way, like I have a role in this, and I have a role in this creation. And at least if you think like that, if that uplifts you and that brings more bounty around you that you do want to see, that you do feel like you need, like, then go in that path, right? And just check yourself, like, okay, today, or check your desires and always see if they're serving you or not serving you. And if they're not serving you, then you're going to have undesirable results. But it's okay to have desirable results. Take a second to plan. And that's when Napoleon Hill and all of them talked about. They say, take a second to really reflect on your life and be like, how do I want to live? Because this mind can attract that. How do I want to live? Why do I want to live that way? I want to live in a way where every single aspect of my life supports me, my family, and everyone around me. That could be financial support, that could be physical support, emotional support, however we define that. Why can't it be that way? So I'll end on Joe Rogan, who's like another controversial Leo, who is a Leo. But what I do want to say is that like the reason his point of view has always been do something difficult every single day, but have it be your choice. Do a tough workout because when you're in jujitsu and you're getting strangled to death, like unless someone else tries to strangle you, that'll be the worst thing that happened to you. And that
Mm.
you can, and it's interesting that you say that but like Leos have that approach to life where it's like, or you could that he embodies that approach to life where it's like if you want to do things that are going to change whatever, if you have these lofty goals for life, like you have to be comfortable with that level of confrontation. You have to be comfortable with facing things rather than running away from things if you are going to make a change in the world and be supportive to those around you.
I think that goes back to, I mean, I'm not such a fan of Joe Rogan, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
honest.
Uh-huh.
I try. He's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah.
The tough one for me to swallow as a you know,
Yeah.
female. Uh, I'll just say female, how about that?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of his energy is not my thing. However, it goes back to yes theory, which I am a fan of, and those guys. And it's the same idea of seek discomfort, right? Like both of them are saying it. That's just I think it's the key there is doing something that challenges you, something that does not necessarily feel comfortable. So also find your again, like we were talking about, really finding your own individual path. And the
100%.
perfect example of that is whether Joe Rogan speaks to you or Yes Theory speaks to you. Um, that's the key is finding what speaks to you and then going with it.
Yeah. It all
So
leads to the same place, doesn't it?
it all leads to the same place.
That's the key. All right.
I think that's it for today.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I love talking to
Absolutely.
you.
And thank you. And you guys go out there and check out some of these great books that Quentin's been suggesting.
Cool. All right, y'all. Peace.